Hi, and welcome to our third episode of Under the Skin podcast. So, today I have a very special guest on our podcast. I have my son. His name is Ethan, and he is 23 years old. Thank you, Ethan, for coming on. Welcome to Under the Skin podcast.
I know, it's very exciting. Very exciting.
We are here to talk about men's mental health, particularly young men.
Yeah.
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 What do you think is the hardest thing about being a young man today?
It's a great question. I think the hardest thing about being a young male in today's society is that there's still so much pressure to be a man and to front up and to just get on with things. But then as well, there is also so much awareness now of mental health, not only just in young males, but across the board. And I think even though there is still so much awareness, that's almost putting more pressure on young males in a weird way, because then they're feeling like they should be speaking up, even though they maybe don't want to.
Or know how to?
Yeah, I think as a young man, and still am a young man, I would like to say anyway.
Very much so.
Yeah, I think you want to speak out, you want the help. Everybody wants the help, or you would like to think a lot of people want the help, but it is hard sometimes to ask for it. Like even if you're in a job and you're supposed to be doing your job and you've started it, but you don't know what you're doing, it's okay to ask for help, but you still don't want to because you feel like, oh, well, it's my job. I should know how to do it. I've got to do it now, and they're expecting me to do it. And I think that's the same sort of thing when it comes to mental health and mental health issues, is that you might know that you need the help, or you might not know that you need the help, but you're being told to speak up and you're being told to talk to your mates, and maybe you're thinking, I don't need to talk to my mates. I've got nothing wrong, or I do have something wrong and I do need to talk to my mates, but I don't know how to, or I don't want to, or it's all just very confusing. I think
So when you say they're being told to speak up and they're being told to ask for help, like who's they?
like social media, I think that plays a big factor into it. With social media, you see everywhere now, it's all about mental health and Mental Health Awareness Week, and it is brilliant, and I'm a very big advocate for it, and people sharing it and raising the
You
awareness
share
for
a
it.
lot on your social media.
Yeah, because I
Great.
think it's a very important part of my life. But the within all that awareness, it's telling men to speak up and telling young boys to speak up and everybody to
Is
speak
there
up.
much out advising them on how to?
That's the problem,
Yeah.
I think, is that they're being told to do it, but they don't know how to bring it up, because it's not an easy conversation to have at all. Like, whenever I had brought up any of my like mental health issues or concerns that I was having before to you, we've had a very open relationship as a mother and son, like our entire life. Like, I've been able to talk to you about anything and nothing's been off the table. But even then, I was still feeling like, I don't know, I don't want to talk to you about it. It feels like a burden is what it feels like, because you don't want to put your problems onto somebody else. And I think that is a big reason why a lot of people don't, because they don't want to bother other people with their own problems. But what I found is that the people who do care about you the most want to listen to your problems, and they might not have a solution for you, and they might not have all the answers for you, but they want to listen and they want to be there. They want to hear what it is that you have to say, because they care about you. And even if that's not the people that are necessarily the closest to you, say like family or friends or anything, but especially with young men in school, like when I was in school, you didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about how you were doing or how you're actually doing. People ask you, are you okay? And you just say, yeah, I'm grand, but you could be having the worst week of your life. But nobody has to know that, because I don't have to, I shouldn't tell you, because I don't want you to worry about me. I'm looking after myself. But yeah, I think the biggest problem is that they don't know how to bring it up. And it is just because it's a difficult subject to talk about, which is why I'm quite excited to talk about it on here with you, because coming from someone who has went through those sort of things, and having had someone like you who's been so supportive in that, it's not felt weird to me, especially now, to talk about those things, because it shouldn't be weird to talk about those things, especially with the people that, you know, you care about and care about you the most.
So you said this was a very important topic for you to be sharing on your social media and educating others, helping others. And you have mentioned with your own struggles.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think like it's obviously best to probably start at the start of it to give a bit more context for it. But you know, I've had a pretty nice upbringing, I'd like to say, and that's obviously thanks to you. But I think if you look at it, if you were to look at me as a person on a piece of paper, and you look at maybe the things that I've grown up with and the school that I've went to and the opportunities that I've been given, if you were to look at it on a piece of paper, you'd go, oh, well, what would he have to worry about? Or what are the problems that he could have? And that is it, is what could he have? He might not have it. And happy days if you don't. That's amazing. But a lot of people do.
Yeah, because you're talking about that time in your life as a 23-year-old young man now,
Yeah.
but take yourself back to those days, because I remember them very clearly.
Yeah.
And as a mum, obviously it was worrying for me, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, take us back to how you were feeling at that time, and, you know, how that might present for a parent who doesn't have that open relationship with their son, and maybe what to kind of maybe look out for, I suppose, if it's that easy.
I think it started whenever I was in school, and I would have been maybe third year, so what, 14, 15? And we had always spoken about it, about maybe it'd be a good idea for you to speak to someone. You'd always told me that, and being a kid, I was like, what do you know? I know everything, blah, 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 but obviously I didn't. And I remember one of the teachers, one of the pastoral staff in school came up to me, and they asked, would I want to speak to somebody? And I just thought, like,
And why did they approach you? Had you spoken to someone?
no,
Or
I'd not
was
spoken
it
about it. It
offered
was,
instead?
yeah, it was just offered,
That's so
and
good.
it was really good, to be fair. But yeah, the teacher, she just came up to me and asked me, did I want to speak to somebody? I don't know, maybe she had noticed something that I wasn't even aware of myself, but I didn't think I needed to speak to somebody. But I was like, yeah, I'll get out of class. That'll be great. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I didn't really know what it was or what to expect from it. But yeah, I just started going and speaking to, I wouldn't say I was a therapist, more of like a counselor at school, like a pastoral counselor. And it was just talking, it's what we're doing now, and just talking about life. And she didn't pester me about anything or try and fix me or anything like that. She just wanted to talk and just hear what I had to say. And I think at that time, being 14, 15, and starting to turn into a young man, there was a lot going on in my head that I probably wasn't even aware of.
So were you surprised about anything that came out in those conversations?
Yeah, like we would be having conversations and it would last the full hour, and I would get to the 45 minutes into it and I'd be like, whoa, where did that come from? I didn't even know I was
Kind of
thinking that.
things? Can you remember?
Like things about like our relationship, like I wasn't an angel as a child. And that obviously put a lot of strain on us because we have always been very close, but you wanted the best for me and you wanted me to turn out as best as I could. And then that would lead to arguments, as all parents have with their
Well,
with
I
their,
was 21 when I had you.
yeah,
I was finding myself, so I've
yeah. So it
done
was,
things a good bit better at my end also.
but
But that's life, isn't it?
yeah, we're all doing it once. It's all our first time here, and nobody has the answers for everything. So yeah, it was just a lot of things that maybe I was thinking about, but I wasn't thinking about. I wasn't actually deeping how they were actually making me feel and maybe making me act subconsciously towards friends and girlfriends at the time. And
But there's also an
to-
element of a very large element of the role that your hormones are playing
Yeah.
also. So, how much of it is potential mental health issues that you need to talk about and have support with, and how much of it is just your hormones at play,
Yeah.
when you just kind of have to get through that.
I think like I started to realize whenever I was doing that, and I think I only did it for like maybe like 2 months or something, 2 or 3 months, but I was realizing that I needed it and that it was beneficial what I was doing, even if I felt like I didn't need it, even if I felt like, oh, I can't be bothered going and talking to her today. Afterwards, it was like a whole weight lifted off your shoulders,
Felt
and
better.
I was just, yeah, I felt amazing for it. But I remember like at the time, whenever my mates would start asking like, why are you leaving maths every single week for this? What is it you're going to do? I remember lying to them.
Oh,
I remember, I don't know why I did though. Maybe it was,
well, because you were
well,
concerned about
it was because I was a kid and I thought maybe there's something wrong with me. I think that is genuinely
you were
maybe what it was, and I remember lying to them saying it was like some acting interview or something like that, because that's what I was into at the time. And they were all like, oh, well done you. And I was like, yeah, go on me, even though I knew it was a lie. But yeah, like I remember feeling, yeah, like embarrassed by it, that I have to go talk to someone whenever all my friends don't. But now that I'm looking back on it, I'm glad I did.
Me too.
Yeah, sure you are. I'm sure you are.
And what about, so obviously you were 14, so you had three sisters at the point? No, I think you had, did you?
Two at least.
So there was your sister for saying who's 5 years younger than you, and then I just had a baby.
Yeah.
So that probably played a little bit of a role where my attention was. So you have a mother who's got a lot of other things going on, so you probably felt like you didn't want to.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can't actually remember, but again, like subconsciously, and I think that is a big thing, is that a lot of it is subconscious when it comes to mental health. Like a lot of things you actually aren't aware are playing an effect or having an effect, sorry, on how you are and how you're acting, and maybe how you're acting in certain situations, that whenever I was then having those conversations, I was realizing, oh, maybe that is why I think that, or maybe that's why I reacted in that way to this situation. But then I think, like you were saying about, having my three sisters and now four younger siblings, and I have two other siblings with my dad. I'm the oldest out of all of the
They all
grandchildren,
look up to you.
and everyone looks up to you. And it's, again, like almost like a subconscious pressure of, okay, well, all these people are looking up to me, and I'm the one who's supposed to
You gotta
set
have
the
shit
standard
together.
here. I need to sort this out, and being a man or a boy at the time, like, and that is what you're told, is that, oh, you're a man, you're supposed to be the leader, everybody's supposed to look to you, and you're supposed to be the one that has it all figured out and be able to just get on with it even if things aren't great. And I mean, I get that to an extent, but it's also just not a healthy way to be. Like,
You're still a child,
yeah.
and
And
you need support.
then I started to sort of realize that as I got a little bit older, that was true. They were looking up to me, and I was starting to actually feel the pressure of it. Like whenever I was going into my GCSEs and A levels and planning to go to university and stuff like that, I was like thinking, oh, I've got to get good grades here, because these ones are looking up to me, and that's going to be the standard that they've got to try and beat.
So, Ethan, you've mentioned to the listeners that you also have siblings on your father's side, because me and your father separated when you were quite young. You were 9 months old.
Yep.
You also mentioned that you were roughly around the age 14 when you started to experience, would you say, feeling overwhelmed? Maybe?
Yeah, I think
Not,
like everything, yeah.
yeah. Do you think, because at that time you would have went to your father's every weekend?
I think I would have just have stopped, and I think maybe that was
So that's what I'm,
why.
do you think the fact that you stopped going to your dad's at the weekends at that age, that maybe had some part in, but you keep talking about the subconscious Because
Yeah.
I definitely felt that I didn't want to put it onto you, but I definitely felt for a long time that you were not you hadn't processed it. The fact that your father had such a large role in your life and then it took a big back seat.
Yeah.
What
I
do you think?
think it definitely did. Now looking back on it, I can definitely see that. And like, I hadn't processed it at that point, that I wasn't seeing my dad every weekend and I wasn't necessarily seeing that side of my family as much as I was and stuff as well. But I think a big thing to do with that was that I had you, and you always played both roles, even though I did have my dad. So you were always trying to make up for that like male role model side of it, as well as being my mum.
I can be pretty macho when I need to be.
Yeah, you can. Um,
I wear the trousers.
yeah. But that was, yeah, like I think that was a big thing as to why I almost just, I like didn't need to process it in my own head almost, because I knew I had you, and I was gonna be okay. And I think, like, obviously I'd known at that point your upbringing and everything that had happened with that, and all I could ever think was, well, if my mum can do that, I can do this. Like, it's not that bad. Like, I'll be all right. But then again, that's the whole toxic masculinity sort of thing of it, of
That's what
going,
I was going to say, because anytime I would have tried to talk to you about it, you would have said, I'm fine. Why do you keep asking me that? Like, I'm fine. It doesn't bother me.
yeah. To be honest, it actually didn't, and I know it does sound like it doesn't sound right, but it didn't bother me, and I don't know why. Maybe I wasn't letting it bother me more than anything. Maybe I was just blocking it because I didn't want it to
Just
bother me.
resilience.
Yeah, got it from somewhere. But yeah, I genuinely just think it just didn't bother me as much as it probably should have. And then whenever I was then starting to talk to people about it, then I realized it had an effect, but it still wasn't bothering me. Like, it wasn't affecting my day to day life. I was still,
You just accepted it.
yeah, I was just like, well, it's happened. I can't do anything about it, so I'll just get on with it. Which is, the whole thing of it is just get on with it. And
So you're 14. You've had a bit of counselling. You played a lot of rugby.
yeah, I think that was a big thing. I think, to be fair,
So what effect do you think that being a rugby player had on your mental health and just young boys in general who play rugby?
I think rugby is the best sport in the world. I think, especially for young men and young girls who need to get something out of them, need to get that energy that is built up inside of them. If they're, deemed as an angry kid, or they know fine rightly that they're, angry or get really angry about things, it's a good outlet for it. Not in a sense of, oh, you're going to go and hurt all these people, but it's an aggressive sport.
Lusting.
Yeah, and it's the same with every sport. Like, when you're playing it, you're not thinking about everything else. You're just thinking about what you have to do right then. So you kind of get to switch off from a lot of things. So I think maybe that's why I became so obsessed with it, was that,
It was your
oh,
outlet.
it was just, yeah, a space where I didn't have to think about anything else that was going on in my life. I just had to think about what I had to do next in that game or in that training session, or I had to just listen to my coach and just take the hammering that he was giving me, because that was what I was supposed to be doing in that moment. But saying that,
Yeah.
that also played probably a big problem or a big part into a lot of my mental health, where it was supposed to be an outlet for me. And because of the school that I'd went to, and I was in the Ulster Academy set up growing up and stuff, there was a lot of that pressure again. And a lot of the lads who I would have been playing with had been playing rugby all their life, and I'd only just picked it up whenever I was like 11 or 10 or something, and they'd been playing it since they could run.
Do you think that there's an element of toxic masculinity
Yeah,
within a sport like that?
yeah,
No matter how good it is for you, because exercise, obviously, there's other forms of exercise that could be an outlet, if you ask me.
yeah.
Um, but do you feel like there's too much pressure in some
I think
aspects of?
with
rugby player?
certain, I think when you're young, there's too much pressure in certain schools and clubs and whatever. There's too much pressure to like be this professional athlete that you're not, because you're 15, 16. You're not a professional athlete.
But what about in terms of mental health? So say a young boy is struggling and can't speak to a family member, can't speak to anyone, doesn't even want to go to the counsellor, is so afraid of anyone ever finding out, and then they're playing a sport like that. Do you feel like that would make things worse?
No, I
No?
actually think it makes it better. I think
Did you feel like you could talk at any point with your
yeah,
team
yeah, for
players,
sure. I think
members?
the being a sport like that is so rough,
Mm-hmm.
you depend on the people around you because you can't do it on your own. And that's a big thing with
That's
team
really
sport.
interesting to me. I would have thought the opposite. That there's such a, you have to be strong and
Yeah, but that is a big
physically,
factor.
and therefore that would, filter into having to be strong, mentally as well, and that maybe it wouldn't be the best place to talk about things like that.
I think it's, you think that from the outside of it, because you look at a rugby player, they're this big, massive man, and they're just, yeah, like they're just like this body of armor almost, and they've can't have anything wrong with them. But I can guarantee you go to most rugby clubs, a lot of those lads have a lot going on, that because they're perceived as that, they feel like they have to be like that.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So maybe not so much from, the coaches or the schools directly, but just kind of being in that um scenario.
I think the environment,
They feel like maybe they couldn't talk.
it obviously depends on person to person.
Yeah.
I've
You're very lucky. You've got great friends.
I've always also, like I said, like having you as my role model and missing out on a lot of my dad being my role model growing up and not seeing him as much and stuff. I was always a lot more in touch with my emotions than most men, I would say, or boys, because I grew up with you. I grew up with all my sisters. I grew up with my auntie, with your friends, and I was always around women.
All my girlfriends.
Yeah, and I think like,
That's really surprising for me to hear you say that, actually, because I would have always felt that I was, on reflection, and especially coming up to recording this podcast with you, I would have felt that I maybe didn't nurture you enough because of my own background, because of being resilient. I always felt like, yes, you can talk to me about anything, but you're going to be okay. You've got more resilience than you think. Go and speak to somebody. And I sometimes think back to maybe if I could do it differently with the experience as a parent I have now, you know, could I have done better? Could I have hugged you more? Not give you that kept giving you pep talks and maybe just listened. I don't know.
I don't know, I think, well, you were trying to do both. Like I said, you were trying to be that, I don't know, like I think a lot of like young boys, and if they have a dad in their lives, their dad's like a superhero. Their dad's invincible. Their dad's the best person in the world. And I didn't have that. I had you. You were my superhero. You were my best person in the world. You were invincible, because I'd known what you'd gone through, and I was like I'd said before, you can do it. I can do it. So I think, yeah, like if you look at it, like you would think, oh well, he didn't have that real strong male role model. Maybe he's going to struggle in that aspect. But you gave me enough of that, and I think you gave me the right balance of it. But like I said, you can look back on it and think, oh, I could have done this better, but you didn't know. You were doing it for the first time. Like, I don't think you did anything wrong by it. I think you did everything that you could. You always were there to talk to me, but you're also always there to just listen. Like, you were there
I
to,
felt like I nagged you constantly.
oh, well, you did, and I probably deserved it. Like,
So this is really nice, very emotional actually to hear you saying this. Thank you. If you are a young boy though, and you don't have that, you don't have the superhero father. You might have a father who's definitely not your superhero,
yeah,
or you might have, a mother who is a very good mom, but maybe isn't as in tune. I think maybe I was have my strengths because of my background.
Yeah, I
So,
think that is
but not
just
everyone
the
has
scenario
that.
I'd
So
gone.
advice would you give to a young boy who's maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed, doesn't know who to talk to or feel like they can?
I know I was talking about at the start of speak up, but that's what I want to say now about how to speak up.
Yeah.
Is that is my advice. Speak to someone. It doesn't matter who it is to you, but speak to someone if it's your mate. Like,
And how do they start that? I would imagine it would feel so overwhelming to
yeah,
try and keep trying to, but it doesn't happen. Any advice to make it that little bit easier for someone to start?
I think the advice to that I can give is that you've got to almost like once you've like recognized that I'm not feeling myself. I don't really know what's going on because you're young and you don't know what's going on. Is to probably try and speak to your friends before speaking to an adult, because you can speak to your friends and you could just bring it up in terms of, oh, this homework that we're doing is really, really stressful. I don't know what to do, and oh my god, I'm really not dealing with this very well.
That's a really good way of actually.
Because I think, yeah, speaking to an adult is going to be way more pressure than speaking to your friends, and I think especially these days,
Yeah, because an adult might over worry and ask 101 questions,
yeah,
and you're just not ready to
because
do
they
that.
have like almost a duty of care to you. They want you to be okay, so they're going to go alarm bells ringing.
Fix
Let's
you.
try and fix it.
Yeah.
You don't need fixing. That's not what people are wanting whenever they're talking to you about it. They just want someone who's going to listen. So, and it obviously depends on your group of friends and what they're like. But like, I had a great group of friends and I was able to talk to them about anything, and I never brought it up to them. I don't think any of them actually probably know. This might be the first time maybe they might be hearing it about some of the things that I went through, but
You wished you
I
had.
wish I had, because it seems really scary to do, but
Would have made your life a lot easier.
they're the ones who are there for you in the thick and thin of it, and they want to know that you're going to be okay, and they might not be able to help you, but maybe that's not what you're wanting. Maybe you're just wanting to go, I don't
Not
know
be in your
what to
own.
do. I need to just tell someone about it, because that's a big thing, is just getting it off your own chest and not having it be up there and it's out there, because a lot of the times when you say something, it might seem a bit more like rational almost,
Yeah, and
whenever
also
it's
maybe
not just
it's
stored up
not as
in your
bad as you
brain.
think it is when you say it out
Yeah.
loud. Um, so the majority of my listeners are going to be women. So what would you say to a mother who has a teenage son or even an older son? Do you think there's any signs to look out for? And even if they did notice something or pick up on something, how best, and I know everyone's different,
Yeah.
but what advice would you give them to kind of like address the issue, try to help their son?
I think it's just, you're going to know your own son best, more than anyone else, probably better than they know themselves. And I think it's just looking out for the little things of like, maybe they're, most teenage boys are going to sit in their room and on their phones these days and on Xbox or whatever. But, maybe if they're not socializing with you at all, like they're not talking to you at all, it might just be them. It might just be that that's what they want, but it also could be
So it's worth checking.
something. So it's just, I think it's just more about just being like, not hyper aware, but just being a bit more aware, about like the fact that boys don't want to talk. They don't, because they want to bottle it up. But just being aware of the little things of, yeah, if they might be staying in their room a little bit more, or they're little things like they're not eating maybe their whole dinner, or they're coming in from school and they're going straight to their room. They're not even saying hello to you, or they're maybe missing out on homeworks. They could just be things, but that's the thing. They could just be things. They could just be that they don't feel like talking to you that day. But it also could be that they've just had the worst day of their life and they don't want to talk to you about it because they don't want to burden you with it,
And
or
they
they don't want
bottle
you
it
to
up.
worry. And I think the thing is with mental health is that it's not an easy conversation. And even though there is a lot more awareness about it these days, it's still never going to be an easy conversation. No matter how much people know about it, no matter how much people want to talk about it, it's still always going to be a bit of a touchy subject or something that you're not quite sure if you want to talk about.
So, like, moving forward, and you are at university,
Yeah.
how was things then for you?
It was great at the start. I had just moved to Liverpool, moved away from home for the first time, and I'd always wanted to move away just for the sake of doing something new and having this new experience. But I think I
It's a
just
funny story, actually. I think should we tell everyone about your decision to go to Liverpool, because that wasn't your first decision.
no. I'd always wanted to go to Liverpool, but then I
With
decided
your
to stay at
your
home.
COVID A level.
Yeah, COVID. I was in my last year of school in A levels whenever COVID hit, so I had literally found out on the Tuesday that COVID was a thing, and then on the Thursday I wasn't allowed back to school.
So you
So I'd
didn't
been,
get you were devastated because you didn't get your A level, or sorry, your upper sixth year leaving.
oh yeah, it was all your levers and all the prank weeks and everything. But
You were
do you know
devastated.
what I was actually
COVID was going
most?
on, and this was your biggest worry at that
I think
time.
that the thing I was most annoyed about was the fact I didn't get to do my A levels, which sounds absolutely crazy,
Yeah.
but
But you'd worked so hard.
I had worked so hard that year because I had done really rubbish the year before, and you had busted my balls to make sure I did well that next year, and I was so prepared for them, and everyone was buzzing that they didn't have to do their A
But
levels.
also, you had been training for rugby, you had been practicing for the plays, you had the lead role, and you were going to a tutor.
Yeah,
And we'd moved out of Belfast to Carrick, so you were having to get the train and bike it. So you had a lot going on, and it was
yeah.
all coming up to this moment where you would do your exams, and then you were going to have the best summer ever. And it was also what? What birthday? Special birthday?
Oh yeah, my 18th birthday actually. Yeah, I forgot about that.
In that as well. So yeah, it was a bit of a shit show for you. But yeah, so you got your grades and you actually got accepted into
I got
your
accepted to Liverpool,
yeah, but you got accepted
but I
into,
also got accepted to Ulster University.
and you had imposter syndrome. You thought you weren't going to get the grades to get into there, and because you got the grades, you were like, I have to go there.
Yeah,
Like, this is a great opportunity, and we don't know what's happening with COVID, and it's just better to stay at home. But you
yeah.
didn't really enjoy it, sure you didn't.
No, I think it could have been to do with COVID as well, but I think a big part of it was that I just didn't want to be about where I was all the time. That I was going out into places in Belfast, hanging about with the same people that I'd already been doing from whenever I was 16, 17. So I was just like,
It just wasn't what you had in your head.
yeah, it wasn't what I had in my head of uni. I thought uni, this is meant to be awesome. I'm supposed to be out partying, doing all this and having a great time and meeting all these new people, and it just wasn't. And I just remember it's like,
And I think, do you think that that's what was having an effect on you, because you were having wee altercations now and again
yeah,
with your roommates?
yeah, like I'd fallen out with a few of the lads that I'd been living with at the time, and the girlfriend that I had at the time. We were just arguing a lot, and a lot of that was down to me, and I just wasn't dealing with it very well in terms of what I could have been doing and how I could have been acting. And I just I just wanted a fresh start, and I remember coming to you and just saying, I want to go to Liverpool.
You come in and you said, Mom, I've already funked the university, and if
Yeah,
they say that I can start at second year, I'm going to Liverpool.
yeah,
And I was like, Ethan, what are you doing? You could be finished university in 2 years. You could have half the amount of debt, and you don't have to pay rent. And it was all about the big picture. As an adult, I was thinking like an adult. And you came back to me and you were very disappointed, and you said, no, the modules are too different. I'm going to have to repeat first year, so it's fine. I'm going to stay at Ulster.
yeah,
And then I thought about it and I thought, hell no. You have all the time in the world to be worrying about finances and the boring adult things. You don't get to redo this time in your life.
Yeah.
And so I came in and we had to get you over, and we had the babies and we didn't have time, and I just came in and I said, you're going, but you're going next weekend because it's the only time we can get you over.
Yeah, I literally found out on the Monday that I could get in, and the next Monday I moved over to Liverpool. It was a bit manic.
But it was the best
So
thing.
it's the best decision I think I've ever made in terms of my life, and I think I appreciated moving away because I'd had that year at home. I really appreciated being able to be away in a different space and being able to restart and make all these new friends. But
Did your mental health
then,
struggle with mental health there?
yeah, then whenever I was in my first year, I was in my student accommodation and stuff, and a whole big falling out again. Everybody had fallen out, and that was just before Christmas, before everybody had went home. And then I came back in January, and you thought, maybe everyone will get over it or whatever, and nobody did. So I was like,
Was
just
this
very,
majorly fueled by alcohol?
oh yeah, big time.
Do you advise anyone who's struggling with mental health to maybe
Don't drink. Yeah, just don't. I don't advocate alcohol at all. I think it is just, it's poison. It literally is poison. And
That's for another podcast.
yeah,
But yes,
it was
definitely
definitely
not good for
fueled
your
by
mental
it.
health.
It was
Yeah.
fueled by it, and it definitely didn't help me, and it wasn't agreeing with me at all, and it was just causing me to just be really just angry and just lash out at people whenever they were lashing out at me, and maybe not be a bit more aware of what I was doing. But then yeah, I came back in January after Christmas and was just alone at that point, and I I made the decision to move out of that flat and move into a new one in the same like accommodation, which then made me more alone. Um, and I just remember like I I just it was the only time I'd ever felt alone, like actually alone. And because I was away from you, I couldn't just run up the road and see you. And I just started to just not feel like me, and I just started feeling really like numb and really like depressed. And I tried to like get on with it like you're supposed to. Um but I just couldn't, and then I started getting really, really anxious. Like I had like properly bad social anxiety. Like I had a Tesco Express that was literally a 1 minute walk away, and I couldn't leave to go and buy my shopping. I couldn't go into the kitchen in my flat to cook my food because I was
didn't
just,
notice.
yeah, but then again, that was me not wanting to tell you to burden you even more. But then I eventually,
did not know it was that bad.
but no, I recognized that I couldn't keep doing that, and I just bit the bullet and rang you, and I just remember being in tears and just, um,
Oh, so. Here.
yeah. Um, yeah, no, I just remember like being in tears and just ringing you and saying I need help. And that was a really, really hard thing to do because it is. And that is, yeah, it was really, really hard to bring myself to do, to ring you and go, I need help because I feel depressed. Because, like I said, it's not an easy conversation to have. And I just remember you saying to me, like, ask me, what's wrong, what's wrong? I didn't know. And a lot of people don't know. They don't know what's wrong. They don't know why they're feeling like that. I obviously knew it had been like, I felt very alone. I didn't have very many friends at that point because everybody had fallen out. But I didn't know why I felt like that. I didn't know why I felt so bad. And then you just said, no, we'll get you talking to someone. We'll get you talking to it. Let's get it sorted. And then I did. And I started doing online therapy and stuff, and just once a week. And it just, I think therapy is the best thing ever. I think even if you don't
Here.
feel like you have anything wrong with you, you should just do
Yeah,
it.
as I call it, gym for the brain.
Yeah, it's just you need someone to talk to that doesn't know anything about you apart from the things that you've told them. because obviously we were very fortunate that we were able to afford it, and not a lot of people can. But I think if you can, you should. Yeah, like even if you don't think that there's anything wrong with you. But I just started doing that, and it then opened up a lot of things to do with like my past and all the things I had growing up that maybe, like we'd said, I didn't really want to touch on.
Like what?
Like to do with my dad and our relationship and all the things that maybe I had been doing. I was very honest with him. I didn't hold back on it because I didn't see the point in me not letting him know what I'm actually
You
like.
couldn't hurt his feelings by telling him.
Exactly. He didn't know any different. He was just listening. But yeah, it gave me a lot of perspective on a lot of things as well. And I think it just really opened my eyes to how mental health can change.
Heal, would you say?
Yeah, it can. And like I said, like I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I thought I was invincible. Like everybody thinks they're invincible. Like, oh, that's not gonna happen to me, but then it did. And like I'm not like a really extroverted person. I can be, but like the fact that I couldn't go to my kitchen to cook dinner or go to the shop, and like I wasn't eating then because of that. I was just it was just so like alien to me to feel like that.
And in that counselling, how did that help you? How long did it take before it started having a noticeable effect?
Like about 2 months of every week doing it. And then I still did it for like about a month and a half after, even though I felt alright.
Good.
Because I just felt like, no, this is good. I like doing this. I like just talking to you. You don't need to tell me anything, but I just like talking about it. And yeah, I think, the 2 months, I think the first sort of few weeks, it was still a bit like, I don't know how much I trust you. I don't know what I want to tell you. And then I felt like as soon as I realized that they are just there to listen, they're not there to try and fix all your problems in a sense. They're there to listen and then try and guide you in your own journey of it. But yeah, it was really, really good. Really, really good.
Ah, as you can imagine, how happy I was, because as a mother, all you want is for your children to be happy. We want them to be, when I say successful, that doesn't mean a lot of money in the bank. For me, that means happy when you wake up in the morning and happy when you go to sleep at night, with enough money in the bank to provide for yourself.
Obviously helps, yeah.
So yeah, no, I was so glad, because a lot of young men would just say, no, I'm not doing the counselling. And you did, you jumped straight on it, and you took control. And yeah, that you're a well adjusted, well rounded young man now, and you're graduated last year. You
Yep.
stayed on in Liverpool. You love it that much.
Yeah.
Definitely the right call. You're working for a charity,
Yeah, charity Delalio Rugby works.
and
Good.
you
With
have.
the young people that are going through that.
So that's how
that
important it is.
job.
You're
Yeah.
actually giving back to the communities and helping people with struggles,
Disadvantaged
disadvantage.
backgrounds,
Yeah,
young people that are being
and you
excluded
love
from
it.
school and not getting that support that they should be getting. And that's exactly why I want to do it, because I was one of those young people at one point, and I want to try and help them understand what they can do for themselves.
We're going to finish up here soon, Ethan. Thank you. But I just wanted to put in this podcast because when I was doing a little bit of research, I was really quite shocked to find out that the leading cause of deaths in men under the age of 35 is suicide. Now, I knew it was high, but I didn't know that statistic, and it really shocked me.
Yeah, and
What do you have to say about that?
it's not surprising, if I'm honest. I think because men don't want to speak up. So it's a shocking statistic, but it's not surprising.
And so your advice is just
Talk
talk.
to someone. Like in 2023 in England and Wales, I think there was around just over 6,000 suicides registered, and 74% of them were men,
It's shocking.
which is like 1 in 5. My maths isn't great, but 1 in 5 of those was a man, and that was from aged 11 to 39.
And I suppose there's other issues that men might face in terms of mental health disorders that, play a role in those statistics. But a large part of it is simply just young men knowing how and who to talk to.
Yeah. And it's also, which isn't great either, that a lot of the time whenever they do speak up, people tell them, get on with it, or they
You'll
just
be all
don't.
right.
Yeah, like, oh, it'll be grand, like, don't worry about it, like, oh, it'll fix itself out, it'll sort itself out, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
You're not in their brain, you're not in their head. Everybody's got their own problems, and it might not seem that important to you, but it could be the worst thing in the world to them. Like,
So professional
yeah,
support is you would advise.
I would advise, and I think whenever I was saying about, speaking to your mate's not gonna know all the problems or know all the answers to your problems. So it's not maybe when you're telling them,
You're not, don't look for answers, but just talk and see where it goes from there.
but if you are the mate that's being told, it can be quite heavy as well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't try and take that burden on yourself either. I would then, if you are that friend or you are that person that's being told, just you then go and try and help them to find the
Yeah.
right places and the right guidance and the right support, because
That's
it's
not
not
your
gonna
yes.
it's not gonna make it any better, you then taking on that toll as well.
Listen, listen, Ethan. What? I can't even say your name. Ethan, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and doing this to really try and help raise awareness and help mums out there, friends out there, just anyone really, basically, if you feel like something's off, just have a chat. And if you're not sure what's wrong with yourself and you feel like something's off,
Yeah,
just have a chat. Just start from there.
it's not gonna be easy, but
It's worth it.
it's worth it. Absolutely. Thank you for having me on and
Thank you.
letting me
Love
talk about
you.
this all. I love you too.